Ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. My name is Rotten Deadite, and with me today are...
I'm Zells, also known as Zells.
And I'm James, also known as Aramithius. And I almost got those two the wrong way around.
That's all right. Yeah. Whatever. And I'm James, also known as Daddy. So we're gonna... we're doing Sermon 10 of the Truth in Sequence. We pulled off Sermon 9 last time. I think 8 and 9. I think we did them both.
Yeah, we got through quite a few.
Yeah, and Sermon 10 is going to be, I think it's a little bit about the relationship with the Dunmer and other races. So let's see here.
Well, we can see, and the past and such like. But
Nothing. Beware blind reverence for the old, child of Set. The old is capitalized here.
Yeah.
I suspect that this might have something to... knee-jerk reaction, I'm thinking this is... probably Adra. Or the Anticipations. Could be.
Yeah.
The oil of antiquity often fuels the future. Those who ignore the counsel of her... Oh, it says beware blind reverence is what we're talking about here. Okay.
Yes.
Those who ignore the counsel of our blessed ancestors do so at their peril, but not all ruins hide wisdom within their shattered halls. Some ruins are dark and barren places, unsteady graves for lies and curses, resting places for bent axles, stripped bolts, and the bitter silence of inertia. So there's a lot of references to the Dunmer system of cargo cult programming. Ooh, I gotta Google that. This is... This is a reference to ancestor worship. The Dunmer were well known for worshiping their ancestors, so much to the point where they would sometimes bring them back from the dead to consult them or ask them to guard, and I assure you that is not necromancy.
Yeah, totally not.
And we are, I should say the Dunmer are, ancestor worship in general is sort of, it's not a new thing for humans. In real life, we've got something similar to that in a lot of cultures, not just many Asian cultures, but if you ever, your family might do it if you ever find them setting up a little, a picture of a past grandfather or father or something, and putting little, rosaries on them or something. That's kind of ancestor worship.
A lot of military shrines in American houses during a certain generation. Yeah.
Yep. And the Dunmer would go so far as to inter their dead in shrines, and also to bury the dead in the main room of the house under the boards. Yeah. Like decent people, Baka. And about 3,000 years ago. You're serious, aren't you?
Yes.
I thought he was joking.
Oh.
I mean, I've heard him burning bridges behind you, but that's whole different.
Yeah.
I like it. Let's bring that back. I'm sorry.
Just burn the whole thing. This stuff is all useless anyway. Out with it. No longer this. Yeah, he's serious.
Yeah.
The Kukeni,
I like it though. I like
culture?
it as a concept.
In current Romania and Ukraine. Oh, okay. Yeah.
But why the burning of the house every few years? Because that sort of resets it about 2 generations in.
Well, it may be, but the point is that it no longer sparks joy, so we spark the village. That's,
Gets rid of disease from the bodies that are under your floorboards.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, that's the materialist hygiene reason to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, who hasn't wanted to just start over? Let's just burn this house down.
Oh, I would love to burn the house I'm in.
Yeah. Don't let your insurance company hear you say
I'd
that.
want to move everything out first. But if the whole place went up in flames and then I got a lot of money, that would work out really.
Yeah.
Extremist Marie Kondo philosophy. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the whole idea of sort of the blessed ancestors, quite a bit of that is both in sort of historical contexts and within the context of the Elder Scrolls, is that it's not all ancestors, it's always selective ancestors.
Yeah.
And the idea of sort of the Dunmer having the Daedra as their ancestors because they explicitly adopted them, more or less. I don't think that's quite made clear in game, but I'm sure that it's somewhere in. I don't know. I can't know whether it's the made up words roundup or the Red Guard Forum Madness.
Yeah.
Somewhere around then, where Daedra was sort of reclaimed as a title as our better ancestors or something. There was some sort of wordplay going on because of what Daedra meant as not our ancestors and that sort of thing.
Our ancestors with cocaine and hookers. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I may be misremembering Morrowind, but isn't the ghost fence when Vivek and well, maybe just Vivek grabs everybody's ancestor spirits and puts them into the fence so that they can protect?
That was a rumor.
The corruption.
That was a rumor going around. I don't remember whether that was in a Morrowind text or in an out-of-game text.
That was the whole ghost fence thing, and was made clear in Ancestors and the Dunmer. You only get an abridged version in ESO, which is why it's a distant memory. But the whole idea of keeping your ancestors interred in ghost fences that you keep in the house, and in those little shrines in houses, like we were saying, but like those military shrines, was explicitly there to sort of bind your ancestors to the house and protect the family and the clan. And that sort of thing. But when the Great Ghost Fence happened, then you were supposed to send the parts of your ancestors to the Great Ghost Fence and have them there to protect against Dagoth. And it's seen as very, very bad for you to maintain a personal ghost fence.
Yeah, that's what I'm remembering.
Houses. Yeah.
And that just seems to me to be one of the more brutal details of Morrowind. The idea that you used to be able to call ancestors and they would like show up and argue with you, but now their souls are being, the front line for this corruption and being destroyed by it. I mean, they're being tortured basically. And you're not supposed to call on your ancestors because that selfishly takes them away from this duty of being the shock troops. But if this is in this truth in sequence, I'm saying this while I hold up this piece of paper no one can see, is would be 1,000 years before that. So is this kind of them starting to prep the soil for letting go of your ancestors because we're going to need them later? Is that being seeded by the tribunal in any sense at this point?
Well, I was going to suggest that. I mean, that's definitely possible, if not probable. But I was initially going to suggest that this was an attempt by the tribunal to try to drag uncontrollable authority away from other sources.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
So if they encourage you to no longer pay attention to what your ancestors are saying, who are spinning in their fucking graves that you're not worshiping the Daedra. And getting soft in big cities and shit, then it sort of centralizes authority more into Almseby, and but I mean, I'm always going to kind of fall back on, sort of Roman Catholic conspiracy theory shit, when it comes to the way Almseby worked, like the tribunal temple, I should say, worked. I also wanted to tell I'll be War in chat, we're not live, this is a rerun. So. We have so when we've got when we talk about ancestor worship I was also going to say wasn't there at one point or another in Egyptian history a form of ancestor worship beyond just like we're worshiping our old pharaohs as gods? There was it's tickling the back of my brain, so I could be very wrong about that.
I can't remember. I know that it became a thing. The cult of the god emperor was a thing in Roman worship eventually.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
but I don't remember anything Egyptian.
Okay, I could be totally fucking crazy. Let's see. In the time before our fathers rise, old and feeble knowledge ruled the hearts of men. Well, that's mean.
Yeah.
The children of Ash entered their ancestral tombs not in search of truth, but in search of truth's corpse. They saw their forebears not as proud and vigorous guides, but as wheezing, toothless ghosts, guardians of the toothless. Have you ever fought a fucking... All right, whatever. Guardians of the let's see, whip the shit out of you. Guardians of the musty and derelict engines that fools call deep wisdom. I honestly don't think that Dildris Morvain has much to stand on here.
No. Yeah.
It really does sound like I said, centralization of power here.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah. If we were going along the idea of kind of preparing the way for sort of the eventual use of the ghost fence and that sort of thing, as Zell's said, then it would assume a much greater link between what Deldris is writing here and what Sothersil did himself.
Mhm.
Because you remember that threat list that he wrote in ESO? It's the man is going to be prepping.
Yeah, he is. He is literally prepping.
Yeah. So putting those seeds in to make that cultural change easier might be a thing.
God, Sothersil all putting Velcro pouches on all of his constructs and
Yeah.
thin blue line flags and
Yeah, you go far enough into the foundations of the Clockwork City, and the only metal you can find is just lots of tin goods everywhere.
Yeah, right on racks.
Yeah.
Canned everything.
Yeah.
Sotha's down there walking around with his plate carrier for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I tell you what, man, when the shit hits the fan, I'm going to be ready. That's all I'm saying, buddy. Are you okay,
Yeah,
Seth?
it's fascinating walking around the Clockwork City and seeing all of the abandoned projects. And I have to wonder, how much of it is because he's deeply ADHD and he never fucking finishes anything, which I can totally relate to. I mean, Soth's my guy, or Seal's my guy. I get it. But the other
That's
hand,
so
I
good.
feel like, how many of these things did he start? And then he's like, well, no, this is not more important than trying to keep Alexia from killing me.
Right.
So let's back burner this while I work on that other on the threat list.
It just stops himself and goes, wait.
As much fun as this would be.
Still managed to not to finish making a food production system. Yeah. It's still gray shitty paste that they're all eating.
Or water.
Yeah,
in a real sense.
Yeah, and to use another model, he's clearly not using what I think of as sort of agile programming. There's no sort of attempt to get a sort of a minimum viable project up with any of this stuff, and then iterate.
Minimum viable. Project management. Pure Hero says, here in Ireland, ancestors are given food on the holiday that is now called Halloween, as it was believed the dead walked the earth that day.
Yeah.
Oh, did St. Patrick get rid of the people who did that when he was clearing the snakes from Ireland? Were they snakes? Or were they pagans? All right.
Draylen, you are correct. It wasn't.
Yes.
It's not the water that is the big quest that I always laugh about. It's the sunshine.
Oh yeah.
The quest where they they take apprentices in every year and then kill them in order to.
Oh right, to keep the sun going.
Sunlight. Yeah.
Yeah.
To grow food.
Yeah.
But alas, even now the stewards of the old feed aged truth to those who would listen. Who have we got here? The old is supposedly the Sigic Order. Oh, I think that's a miss there, UESP. Oh no, they are the daughters and sons of Sig, who crouch like gargoyles over musty tomes, faces hidden beneath frayed and graying robes. They counsel caution, temperance, and equanimity, ancient virtues of the fading Nern Prior. Equanimity, temperance, and caution.
Yeah, be careful and be kind.
Well, yeah, we can't have that.
No.
Even so, the Father of Curiosity calls them friends. With a god's patience, he teaches them. With a father's love, he guides them. All in the hope that one day they may see the deepest truth of the old, that we must banish our feeble ghosts and give their memory new life through the thrice-folded mind.
We're all forgetting that Sothersil was an instructor of the Sigic Order.
Yeah, he was.
I was just about to ask that. Isn't the old ways what the Sigics revere? Is that right?
Yeah. It was.
So is this a nod to that at all?
And the grey robes is another one.
Yeah. The old ways was supposed to be literally the mysticism branch, wasn't it?
Old ways, yeah, it's a term for the Sigics and for mysticism, which are more or less the same thing according to the book that talks about it. the old ways was a term for the old ways of Aldmeris, which was sort of unbridled ancestor worship.
Yeah.
Whereas sort of moving towards the Aedra was specific ancestors. They got a lot more selective as they went on.
Yeah.
The Sigics left Aldmeris when that selection started to happen, and because they wanted to carry on worshipping everyone. Because they believe that Aedra and Daedra are just deified mortals and all of that sort of things.
I was going to mention, when we were talking about ancestor worship, that is something that the Altmer were definitely into.
Yeah.
I don't know about in the ESO era, or certainly in the 3rd to 4th era. I don't know how much they were still doing it. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Well, in ESO, you don't. I don't recall in ESO seeing a lot of reference to ancestor worship in quests around the Somerset Isles and other areas.
The schism happens quite a bit earlier because it happened when the Sigic Order formed. They left in order to carry on their old original practices, and so the selective ancestor worship that then became the Aedra was way back when the Sigics left in I can't remember when exactly, sometime in the first era. But
it's an interesting balance, though, because the Altmer culture and society is so grounded in, I mean, they don't call it ancestor worship, but every generation ahead of you is so much more perfect than you could ever hope to be. And so there is like a reverence in terms of like honoring the house and honoring the lineage and the focus on the bloodlines and all that kind of stuff.
It's interesting. Something just occurred to me about ancestor worship. There's a tendency probably still is, a tendency in like modern Western esotericism and mysticism to believe or suspect, or whatever you want to say, that ancient wisdom is better than modern wisdom.
Right.
That the ancients of wherever had some access to some kind of secret knowledge that they did not share and has been lost, and can be, if uncovered, can make you incredibly whatever the fuck you want. Can fucking grant wishes and shoot rainbows out of your ass. And I think possibly that a tendency for a culture to have ancestor worship would probably have that kind of idea. That I'm thinking maybe if you're always in the mindset of consult your ancestors, people who came before you have knowledge that is useful, then there would also be a tendency it would be easy to make that leap and say that they were smarter and that we're getting dumber, in a very sort of conservative kind of like bring back, make Aldmeris great again kind of, kind of thing.
Yeah, but that's sort of just framing everything in nostalgia terms and so on. But
Draylin, it is rude of the ancient wise folk, but you also have to understand that a lot of the Western esotericism, the idea of like lost knowledge, it came about because of the Dark Ages and when the Christians were burning books and setting fire to witches and stuff like that. That's the reason. That's a lot of the reason why that knowledge was lost. Is because
there's also a big history of you have people having to prove that they're good enough to get access to the knowledge.
Yeah.
So and people always the wise mentor withholding a certain amount of knowledge from their apprentices just so they can always have that leg up. I'm thinking here of Shalador. But it certainly happens. Ceremonial mages, that happens a lot. That's a precept in ceremonial. A lot of ceremonial mage texts have errors built into the text on purpose, because if you're really knowing if you know what you're doing, you should be able to find the errors and fix them yourself. It's a test.
Yeah.
So the passing on of deliberately wrong information just to trip up your subsequent apprentices or people who are following you, I mean that is embedded in that tradition too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as far as I'm concerned, that whole idea of kind of the past containing vast amounts of knowledge is just, to my mind, it's just a cultural hangover of the fall of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
But
I can see
that's yeah.
Yeah, and
Mm.
anyway, okay.
Yep.
Let's see here. Mm, 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 mm. He guides them all in the hopes that one day they may see the deepest truth of the old, that we must banish our feeble ghosts and give their memory new life through the thrice-folded mind. Toothless gears cannot be repaired. They must be melted and reforged. So it is with our people's truth. None will deny that the daughters and the sons of Sige wield great power. Like our clockwork city, their Isle of Artaeum glides between what is and what may be. True, the Isle of Artaeum, especially at this point, is a lot of different places at the same time.
Somewhere, somewhen, but yeah.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, yeah.
Yep.
Like our clockwork apostles, they study, strive, and create. But power without an infinite future's courage is like an empty boiler, infused with fierce heat but producing no steam. Woe upon those who recoil from Tamriel Final and Uvanasi. The will of the clockwork god turns such cowardice to slag. But rejoice, the father of mystery's affection proves the Sige's worth. One day these lost spellweavers will heed words of the divine metronome and speak the true and noble change. Aha. The
We're getting distinctions.
Aratagnathyr.
We're getting distinctions between the Sige and the Sigic here.
Yeah.
Which Dunmer culture has historically drawn quite a bit, because the Sige was, you can make an argument precisely what the Endeavor was. The Sigic Endeavor and the Sigic Order are distinct things.
Yes.
So this is saying that the Sigic Order should realize the Sigic Endeavor and get back to it.
Yeah.
So, and that endeavor is to guide change to the proper path. Am I remembering that correctly? I was always fuzzy on the Sigics.
Sort of. The problem is that when somebody brought it up, I think the clearest definition of the Sigic Endeavor was something that we got, and I put clear in quotes, something that we got from Kirkbride, who said that the Sigic Order and the Sigic Endeavor are both heading towards the same goal. But he said that in the context of the conversation when we were talking about Amaranth. So a lot of people, probably including me, misinterpreted that as saying that the Sigic Order is trying to reach Amaranth. That was not what he was saying. I think when he said they're trying to reach the same goal, I'm pretty sure what he meant was they're just trying to reach some kind of control or power of wisdom or etc. Knowledge of the universe, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's because I'm remembering an older quote that was saying that they were different, that the Sigic Order and the Sigic Endeavor basically just share a name. But that was pre Amaranth, with that sort of mid 2000s at the latest. Here we are. Oh, this is in Vex teaching. That's where I'm getting that confused. Concerning Vex teaching concerning the Sigic Order and the Sigic Endeavor. What's the relationship between the Sigic Order and the Sigic Endeavor? Nothing but a namesake, I'm sorry to say. Now we can end that mystery. The Endeavor is a method of achieving the tower, and then what to do after. The Order is not, and does not really care for the Endeavor at all, thinking it wrong-headed nearly from the start. So what is the Sigic Order? A monastic order of the Ultima, impressive with age and obsessed with a kind of mythic genealogy made famous by monomythism. Theirs was mostly the study of reverse ancestry as a means to combat spiritual and material degradation. Or at least it was, I should say, as I do not know what they do now and do not much care. They were wrong-headed nearly from the start. Granted, this is a very opinionated Vex saying this. So...
yeah. I don't know what Sotha would have said.
Sorry?
Yeah, I don't know what Sotha would have said.
No. Yeah, because he clearly had better exposure to them. And quite how much he would have talked about them to Deldries. We've got no end of Chinese whispers going on as regards to that. So we've got the sons and daughters of Sid who crutch over
So sorry, go ahead.
But no, go on.
Is this in any coded way talking about the possible fall of the towers? Is that what we're the change that we're hinting at here, or why bring the Psijics into this? Why bring the Psijic Endeavor into it? Why bring their goals into it?
I think this is part of some of the meta themes of the truth in sequence as a whole. Quite a few of these are basically hit pieces on other ideologies that have claims to transcendence.
Okay,
And
all right.
so I think that's why, like, they go against the Dwemer, they go against the Daedra, and now they go against the Psijics.
Okay.
So I think it's just showing why everyone else is wrong. um, and that
That's
sort of fits
solid.
these patterns.
On that day we shall embrace them not as friends but as brothers and sisters. So the Eratagnathir. Anybody want to take a shot at that? The Eratagnathir. It's only mentioned once, from what I can tell, in the Truth in Sequence, and nowhere else in any other document. So, did Tuttle leave us something?
Not that
So
I know
that
of.
isn't a word from the Psijic texts.
Doesn't appear to be. If it is, then Google can't find it. Yeah.
That explains why I could never find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If chat's got an opinion, I'd love to hear it, because
yeah.
True and noble change.
Ooh.
Oh
no. Nope, sorry, that was a nationstates.net thing.
That's junk. I found that too.
Yeah. I just like theocracy. Or is this something to do with some odd piece of Christianity I've never heard of? But no.
Nope.
No. Yeah. No, I think Tuttle has slung us an entirely unique word that doesn't plug into anything.
Yeah. Yet another thing I'd love to bend his ear about if he ever gave me the chance, if he ever got within arm's reach. They're saying that the Psijics don't have a greater purpose besides just learning and understanding. I agree 100%. In contrast to Sothisil, who is going to remake Tamriel into a perfect machine. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that is definitely what I'm getting here. It's and I think that's probably a very fair criticism of the Psijic Order, that they are researchers collecting knowledge for knowledge's sake, and they're not actually doing anything with it, which is a criticism that was levied against them in ESO several times. That they are a little bit like Jedi, in the respect that they're just sitting on top of their ivory tower, learning all these things. Sounds Tolkien-esque, yes, Baka.
Just trying to think,
and not actually doing anything with the power and knowledge that they've accrued.
Do we have? Oh no, it is somewhere. It is somewhere, like it's mentioned in the Psijic quest line or something really obscure, like item text or something. That, because there's something about the different types of change and
exactly.
and that sort of thing. Baka Tengwa, give me a second to talk about this, because I have a Quenya dictionary on my computer somewhere. Give me a few seconds. But I can't remember what the just to carry on with just that original line of thought. What the idea of the different types of change and everything, like I'm sure it's just like mentioned in an item description or somewhere, or the different types of change. It's here we are. It's like it's one of those words that kind of goes alongside the Selectives or something like that, which is the kind of the word they give for grave and faithful counsel, and that sort of thing. So I think it's just the word for correct change or those sorts of things. There's a text somewhere that talks about the change as the neutral force, and change should be encouraged only when it promotes good, and those sorts of things. It's the words for it's their word for a desirable change or something like that.
Change is the most sacred of the 11 forces.
Like there's all of the change is the most sacred of the 11 forces, but then there's like these very specific kinds of change, and they're wanting to like make certain kinds of change but not other kinds of change, and people are always arguing about like they're not doing enough, but they do meddle.
Yes.
But people are people always want them to meddle in different ways, I guess.
Yeah. Do you remember where those different types of change are listed?
I don't. I can't for the life of
That's-
me. I just remember that it's somewhere in the Sijic quest line. They're talking about like
yeah.
a big part of that is that the people the young people that are in the Sijic guild that you're dealing with, one of them in particular wants to make changes, and her bosses are saying no, but
Yeah.
they do make some changes. There's different gradations. Somehow they slice that, and I don't know how.
Hmm. Oegnathir is the bad change. Um, so we have Oegnathir and Argnathir. So I think that's just words. It's just yeah. The Aratagnathir is just the word for true and noble change. It's the type
Yeah.
of change that the Sijics want.
Are you getting that from an ESO book, or is that?
I'm getting that from the fact that Oegnathir
Yeah, where's that?
is mentioned by Lawmaster Solaris in
There it is.
ESO
Okay.
as the bad change.
Mm-hmm.
And just in the context of the truth in sequence, but seek the true and noble change, the Aragnathir, I think you're getting a definition there.
Yeah.
Just so I as much as I would love to dive into Quenya for this, I don't think that rabbit trail is going to serve us particularly well.
I wish it
So
would, though.
in the quest, he gives the one word that means bad change, and then
Yeah.
we're presuming that there's other kinds of like mediocre good change.
Mediocre.
But the very best true and noble change is
Yeah.
this particular word.
Aratagnath. Having said that, uh, having that said that the route looking at it for Quenya, the closest it can come to is that Aran is the noun form of meaning king, which is an interesting pull. There's the idea that true and noble change is linked to becoming a ruling king. But that's Aran, not Arat, and various bits of that, like Arato, means noble according to this word list. So again, it's so if we're talking, sorry, Aratag, GN is not a phenome within Quenya, as far as I know. So I don't think that really takes us anywhere. Yeah. It is in Cinderin, it's not in Quenya. And Cinderin I know even less of than I do Quenya. So yeah, I can't tell you anything else there.
Well, anyway, that's Sermon 10.
Yep.
Sermon 11 starts. Oh goodness. I hear your whispers, your puerile laments. Even here in the Clockwork City, bathed in the oil of his divine wisdom, you cry out, "Why are there soft grasses and babbling creeks? Where are the heady wines and... Oh, where are the soft grasses and babbling creeks? Where are the heady wines and rich fruits? Where are the gentle rains and sighing boughs and swaying mushrooms? Oh,
Why does it suck here?
why are the developers so lazy? Why can't they just release a patch?"
Yeah, although the thing that I heard on just rehearing that, the soft grasses and babbling creeks, that just reminds me of Psalm 23.
Mhm.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me in green pastures and he lets me lie in green pastures and leads me by quiet waters.
Why is this game made out of rigid meshes and no curved surfaces? Why is the poly count so low?
Yeah.
Like hungry babes, you
That
weep.
the next time I have a bad day at work.
Yep. Like hungry babes, you weep. Where is the real? Ease your bellows and steady your gears. Chill the fuck out. You must. It doesn't say that. You must gaze now upon the brass-wrought truth. See the reel of Tamriel final, Anuvanasi.
Oh, sorry. I just had a philosophy flashback via the Matrix. if you have someone who says this is the real in the Matrix, what's the line that comes to your head when you think of the real in the Matrix? Pop quiz.
Say again.
When you think of the real
Mhm.
when in the Matrix,
Mhm.
what's the line that comes to you? What comes to mind? First film.
Oh
What is real?
Not quite.
no, I don't remember.
No.
I don't
No.
remember the first film that well.
Welcome to the desert of the
The
real.
Desert of the Real, yeah. Mhm.
And that's a word lifted from a book by someone whose name I cannot remember, but it's from the book is Simulacra and Simulation.
Yeah.
Um,
Simula and Simulacrum. Yeah.
Simulacra and Simulation. Jean Baudrillard is so he's just looking he's looking at things like how the reality between symbol and society and actual reality works in how that book just evaluates various bits. So I don't know whether that necessarily links in with this, but because if you're asking, well, where is the real? The real is pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
The desert of the real, it's a blank landscape. It needs to be colored. Things need to be put in, and is sort of the point of Baudrillard, if I'm even pronouncing his name right. But so it's the case of where is the real is almost the wrong question. As far, if we're looking at it in the terms of those books. It's been so long since I've had anything to do with it. I can't give you much more of a summary than that.
Yeah.
But that might be something to look into.
I should probably read that. That seems like one of those books that that every philosophy major has read and that I haven't, and that I should just get it out of the way.
I never read that one either.
It's really about having realistic transition goals.
I have I just looking at my notes when I read this at some point I scribbled "You will see me as you are in love with evil" into the margin because it reminded me of the Vec's sermons when he says that. You want to go back to the world because you're in love with it because it's but you're in love with evil.
Awful. It's like watching a train wreck. You can't look away.
Yep.
There's a word. There's something. Somebody found out exactly what the neurological condition is for that when we're watching horror movies and there's something horrible and gory on the screen and we can't look away. And somebody actually figured it. Huh?
Is it the car crash effect? Is what I think of. But...
Sort of. It was the guy who was talking about it as an evolutionary survival instinct of people watching or observing other people who behave erratically or have some sort of like mutation or disease or something on them, and so you're sort of like your evolutionary reflexes to watch whatever that person is or whatever it is they're doing to see whether or not they're a threat. And so it's like this cautionary sort of focus. And they sort of, I think they spent some time identifying which chemicals were involved in neuroscience, but anyway. The creators, I don't think they confirmed that was their intention, but it is telling that, if I recall correctly, Neo has that book on his bookshelf. Yes. He keeps the hard drive, the disc that he sells to the ravers. He kept it inside a hollowed out copy of that book.
Yes. So it is in fact a simulacrum of simulacra and simulation. Which is deeply ironic. But I think there's also questions about the Matrix as metaphor for transitioning. Right. I do know that that one of their original intents, but that they walked back because they weren't sure how it would be taken, is that Switch would have been presenting as a different gender in the Matrix compared to real life. Yeah. And the name sort of gives that one away. That's all that's really left of it. I don't know whether they would have made anything more of the character if that was going to be what happened, because the only real lines I really remember of the character in the cinematic release is just the line "not like this" and she dies.
Yeah, she had a couple of cool lines though. It was a hell of a cool looking character too. A great costume and hair and everything. I was like pissed when she died in it. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
they were neat.
But no, I do know that I remember hearing that they meant for Switch to be an actual gender switch between the two, but I don't know about any more intentions towards transition or not.
So what makes a thing real? Is it the blood or the sap or the beating heart? Is it the shrieking trauma from an infant's birth, the low roar of the tides, the root's thirst for water, or the lazy drift of distant clouds? No, child of Set! Exclamation point. Hear the words in sequence! Exclamation point. Can you not see that your fears spring from Lorcan's lie? Those soft forms and gentle comforts you covet are naught but corroded lies, fractured creations, panacea. Yeah, panacea that deadens the soul's forgotten pain. But it is Sothasill's sacred city, not a replication, you ask. A Nirn in miniature, thank you. Hear this, Ashchild, the Clockwork City is no mere simulacrum. The copper leaves and sculpted hills are not Nirn's resemblance, but Nirn's refinement. Worldly forms made whole by the steady hand of the mainspring ever wound. The glorious unity of Tamriel Final demands convergence. Anuvinasi, Mare and the machine made whole. Ooh. I'm actually I was going to say let me come back to that, but no, let me stop.
Yeah.
Mare and machine made whole. Is it? I hardcore get like Adeptus Mechanicus vibes from that, you know.
Yeah. I was going to go with Dreadnoughts, the Imperfects, Dreadnoughts.
Interesting.
The Dreadnoughts are almost dead Space Marines. So,
yes.
But the Mechanicus and the Mechanicum were replacing their bodies with machines. Were, by the way, the not the Iron. Was it the Iron Fists or the
Iron Hands?
Yeah, the Iron Hand. No, the Iron Hands were augmenting. It was the Iron Warriors. Who went over to who were traders who were like replacing their bodies. Like that was their the Iron Hands were just like, well, we could be a little better.
It's sort of the idea of there's always a question as to how far is too far and when it becomes heresy to deny the fundamental humanity and that sort of thing with the Mechanicus. Sort of that question, because I think they genuinely take things too far, because their sort of idea of the right of pure thought is basically making yourself into a computer.
Yeah, it's until you talk in binary. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
I always think about the technocrats in White Wolf games.
Oh, Mage the Ascension, yeah.
Oh, man, it's been a while since somebody mentioned that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's more about science being the ultimate nature of reality rather than magic.
It's still turning yourself into a machine and erasing the lines between the organic and the inorganic. Which, it is sort of what Deldries is harping at here, that that line is an illusion, I think is part of his point.
Yeah.
Well, but it goes on to also say nature and engineering made whole, the past and the future made whole. I don't necessarily know if we've got the right angle here.
It's synthesis. It's not
not
one over
combination.
the other.
Yeah, that's true.
It's everything being put into its perfect balance between all of these apparent opposites.
In time, all of Nirn shall be pressed and fired in this forge of Set's blessed imaginings, weighed and measured upon the nameless scales. Is this not the real? Is this not the redemption of the Atata sins? Do you see now the impoverished forms of the Nirn Prior, the cheap and hollow falsehoods that masquerade as nature's splendor? Yeah.
I am curious if there's some odd wordplay going on here. The idea of the ultimate reality sort of idea. If you look into ultimate, it can also mean final. So I'm just sort of thinking, if you're talking about what is ultimate reality, what is the real reality, or what is the final reality? are all both ways that you could rephrase that as a question.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't talking about what's the actual nature of everything when all illusion and false perception and whatever is stripped away. This is the ultimate destiny of everything.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
this is the thing that will last.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the whole idea of all of the fires and everything else. Everything else that is junk, that is rubbish, that is in some way not a thing will
Right.
be burned away.
Yeah, it's not real, has been,
Yeah.
This is, we mentioned this before, but this is getting very close to the, Crimson Dawn? Who is it?
Mythic Dawn?
The Mythic Dawn, yeah.
Yeah.
Of cutting away everything that isn't needed. Yeah.
It's also getting a bit apocalyptic.
It is.
In the common sense of the term. But
even when dreams carry through the night, the device is somewhere near. It's a part of it. Yeah, exactly, Albawar. You're not wrong. We always have our smartphones on us all the time, and we're about as close to our cell phones as we can get, as close to these computers that we can get without having them inside of us.
Yep.
And they're voice activated, motion controlled, and et cetera, yeah. And I mean, because some companies out there are trying to change that shit too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Seek out the dry, hard places, child of Set. Anoint your tongue with his oil. Fill your stomach with his nourishing grain. Cast out what was, and fix your eyes upon the Nirn to come, upon Tamriel Final and Nuvenasi.
Yes, Baka. Beloth would like a word.
Yeah. And that's sort of like this is what I would kindly call this sermon a whole lot of nothing. It doesn't really have a lot of actual content in it. It's just, oh, you're complaining that this place isn't real enough? Well, just you wait.
It's also pushing towards asceticism. That final line is saying you will find truth in the barest of necessities. That
right.
Everything else, it's like kind of like it's almost saying go and be a stylite, which is an interesting prospect. But the idea of kind of go away and eat next to nothing, wear next to nothing, and just live in the desert, and you will eventually start to see reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is again a very Velothi kind of concept to live a hard life and you'll get tougher and stronger and eventually
yeah, although
Lisan
there is
Al-Gaib will come along.
There is a fundamental difference with that. A lot of the Velothi stuff is is kind of doing self-reliance and that sort of thing, whereas this thing is saying anoint your tongue with Sotha Sil's oil, fill your tongue with fill your stomach with Sotha Sil's grain. You are receiving gifts from God in these places. It's not for you to get better; it's for you to receive what you should receive. And be in the right place to do it. It's just you will see the truth and it will be given to you. You do not need to earn it. You just need to make yourself of the right mind frame to do it.
Yeah.
So there is a slight difference in there.
Yeah, but again, it's not. Of all the sermons so far that we've done, this has been the one that's been mostly sort of just,
meh.
Stop, just get in line. Just shut up.
Eat your gruel and shut up.
Just eat your paste and shut the hell up. Yeah.
Yeah, but it tastes like tasty wheat.
We've only been at this for like 45 minutes, so let's do 12.
Do you think
Let's do the last one.
Machines didn't know what chicken tasted like. So.
Yeah, because everything tastes like chicken. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot, man. The more we talk about this, the more matrixy it gets.
Yeah.
So, volume 12. I have spoken the words in sequence, child of Set. I have guided your eyes to the glorious Nirn ensuing, to the inevitable grandeur of Tamriel Final, Amnuvanasi. If it's so inevitable, why are we worried about it?
I've done my job, now shut up and believe.
Yeah, now donate. I have shouted my grave admonitions and whispered the secrets of the infinite curve. Now, as my engine fails, I bestow upon you my final blessing. You who sing the song of making and set your wheels to axles, you intrepid star counters who shatter the old machines and smelt the new truths from the crude and forgotten ores of the Arbus, you must hear this ultimate lesson. Tamriel Final shall change you in ways both grand and terrifying. Anuvanasi, just as molten brass cools in its mold, so too will your body take on a new and hardened shape. Oh, now we're getting all fucking, David Cronenberg here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Just as
we're getting into sort of the old world will pass away and you will be reborn in glorified bodies, sort of thing.
Once I realized the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me. Tamriel Final shall change you in ways both grand and terrifying, just as I've read that already. Just as water changes from liquid to steam, so too will the cheap preoccupations of your mind disperse and fade. Just as oil ignites and powers the engine. Oh. Somebody tell him that's not what oil does. Oh dear.
Whoops.
So too will your soul glow bright and drive the wheels eternal. The unity of time. If your oil ignites in your engine, people, you're in deep, deep shit.
Let's say that was supposed to be fuel. Just as fuel ignites and
it's
powers,
just
something hardened somewhere.
Oh God. Okay. The unity of Tamriel Final must wash away our selfish pursuits and jealous will, Ashchild. Anuvanasi. In the glorious Nirn ensuing, we must exercise that grinning apparition we call I. Only then can we know the sublime truth of the mainspring everwound. We must walk change's road if we seek to the end of disorder, and like all roads worth walking, it fills our hearts with joy and terror.
Ooh. There's some meaty Vecchian parallels.
Yes.
In
that. Yeah.
Yeah, Vec was all about the beautiful and terrible stuff.
Yeah.
This is something you're going to get in a lot of older religious texts, especially older Christian religious texts and Jewish religious texts. They're talking about God as being awful or awesome in the ancient idea of something being awe-inspiring, which is terrifying. And, and
terrific, and so on.
Yes, terrific.
Yeah. As an inspiring terror.
It also that line in particular amuses me because one of my favorite Vivek quotes is "The tower is an eye."
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It's both an eye in the shape of an eye, and it's also an eye as in I am, and it's also an eye as in an I. Yeah.
It's the total opposite of that. It's we must exercise the grinning apparition we call I, whereas Vivek says I is the only name of God.
Yeah.
So it's entirely the opposite of what Vecchian teaching is.
That's right.
But I guess if your goal in this text is to get people to subsume themselves into the other god and into Seal, then it makes sense to flip it. But yeah, Vivek's the sermons of Vivek are more about this was my path, and therefore, it's all about I.
I am God, and so can you.
Yeah. But I've just realized this is also making very, very Dwemery noises, if I can put it that way. Because, or at least in the way that Baladas Damnavani puts it. Because according to Damnavani, or Demnavani, I can't remember what the spelling is, he was talking about the Dwemer creating the sacred through the deaths of the profane, and combining all of the Dwemer into one glob to make them into a god. I'm not sure that it feels like there's something similar going on here. It feels a little distinct from it because it's not a gestalt. It's a grand house or ship of many, many parts being driven by one singular captain, sort of thing, which is not really what I think the Dwemer are about. Kagranak, I don't think he had any delusions of being the thing that drove the Dwemer's will. So it's still a little different, but it still feels a little Dwemery.
Yeah. It still feels giant ocean of LCL, kind of. Yeah. How like the Atata gears we are, content to live our lives in vain and sequestered sorrow, all while oblivious to the anguished cries of our fractured souls. Look upon the lonely shore of Nirn. What do you see with your broken eyes? One beach, one sea? Deceit and vanity, the named illusion. For what is a beach if not a desperate agglomeration of isolated grains? What is a sea if not a churning mass of solitary tears, separate, broken, arrogant, and futile? Even after meditating upon these sermons, there are some among you who cling to the Nirn Prior. You feel the loss of your thin and impoverished self. You must cast aside those childish fears. What good is a self if it burns away at the threshold of what waits beyond time? Oh, if it burns away at the threshold of what waits beyond time. Do you not see that the Father of Mysteries seeks to usher our world through the end? So this is... I pick up a lot of this stuff in religious texts where they talk about if it's not going to be there, you can't take it with you. If glory to the many, right on, Baka. If you can't take it with you. Your all your good looks and everything don't matter when you're sitting next to when you're in heaven, etc., etc. So all of this stuff is worthless because in your eternal reward it won't be there, so it doesn't matter. And I think that is kind of, I'm not saying that's wrong-headed thinking, but I think it's just one way to look at something that's a lot more complex than value versus valueless. It's there's a lot to be said for good health when good health is what you have. When like trying for good health is a great idea when you're not healthy, and nobody's going to argue that.
Yep.
If it's I've seen some Instagram reels from heaven. It's a very physical appearance based up there. Yeah, those Instagram reels from heaven. Wait, are you sure it was heaven and not maybe Los Angeles? I know that a lot of people are.
I mean, it's in the name. There are angels.
People are very pretty there. 100%. So yeah. All right. Anyway, no. I know the difference. I would never mistake Los Angeles for heaven. Yeah, neither would I.
No.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah.
I have been to Los Angeles. It is not heaven. And it's a city of angels. Yeah, I don't know how they get that.
No.
Let's see.
I just keep on thinking Spinoza with this stuff. The idea of there is only a single substance of which there are many forms and many expressions, but the instant you start thinking of those as distinct substances, you start to misunderstand things. But it's I'm just trying to find hang on. I'm just trying to find the bits where I was thinking about for Spinoza, so I can just try and break it down to be simple, but it's not really simple.
Yeah.
Because by substance, I mean that which is in itself and is conceived through itself. In other words, that of which a conception can be formed independently of any other conception. By attribute, I mean that which the intellect perceives as constituting the essence of a substance. By mode, I mean the modifications of substance, or that which exists in and is conceived through something other than itself.
What?
So that's, yeah. And so from that, you kind of get things like everything. Then you get to go on to other things like substance is by nature prior to its modifications. This is clear because of what substance is and what attributes are. Two substances whose attributes are different have nothing in common. And that's clear because substance can be conceived only through itself, and because attributes are can only be perceived as constituting the essence of that substance. It gets very, very wordy and very, very self-referential very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But
this is like reading really advanced Jung. It's he would do that shit. He would go, well, X plus Y, and now, and then giant fucking like thing,
yeah.
like big calculation.
I was skipping a few steps, but the whole thing reads like that. It's literally because he'll say like this is your definitions, these are your axioms, and now as a result of this, proposition 1 because of blah blah blah, and he'll
Yeah.
reference previous points, and
So if you don't fully understand the beginning part, then you're not going to get anywhere.
But it feels very, very like that. The idea that sort of that substance is not substance is almost a thing in itself that that you kind of bear in mind as sort of a unitary thing that binds everything together. That the modifications and differences of stuff are sort of a different category from stuff itself. And so this just feels like that, because what good is a self if it burns away, and all of that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like, yeah, they were talking about modifications of a thing, and the kind of the sort of the more complicated higher levels of thing going on, rather higher order things, rather than the sort of the base level. I just really do get those vibes. But and yes, Zels, interim steps are left for the reader to complete as an exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. It also doesn't help that Spinoza was also a huge maths nerd.
Okay.
So yeah, that leaks through in a lot of his writing.
I had a GTA who continually would trail off math explanations with some kind of phrase like, and the rest, of course, is obvious. And I finally just started putting that on my tests.
Mm-hmm.
I would do as much of the work as I could work through, and then I would get stuck, and I would just write, the rest is obvious.
Yeah.
And I would get partial credit for that most of the time from him.
Right. Yep. Hi, ma'am.
Wow.
My dog is looking at me significantly. Do you not see that the Father of Mysteries seeks to usher our world through to the end, to protect us from lies made flesh who seek to destroy us? If you remember only one thing, let it be this. Our blessed clockwork God loves you with a fierce and awesome heart. What he does for you and for all who would follow his divine example. Could it be his fierce and radical heart? Could it be like a... All right.
You personally. Every single one of us personally.
Yeah, personally. Yeah, he knows everybody, and he's fucking crazy about you. Lasting joy, the peace of unity, the sublime satisfaction of perfect rhythm, these are the product of our honest labors, the spokes of our blessed wheel that spins eternal. The mainspring ever wound offers protection, child of Set, but you have to gaze within. Stoke your coals.
Perfection.
Yeah, offers perfection. Yeah. You have.
You said protection.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have but to gaze within. Stoke your coals. Add fresh water to your boilers. Tighten your bolts and believe. Tamriel final awaits Anu Vanassi. So. Yeah, lies made flesh, the trapping spirits of Mundus. Yeah, it's more of Vex, what we got originally from Vec, of the Aedra are liars, and everything that they helped create is an illusion. It's more of the sort of Eastern thought of there is no reality, there's only our perception of reality, and our perception is a lie. And Minerva's cage. Okay, and I think we don't really have much to say about 12, right? I mean,
no. It's just the final exhortation to believe, trust, and try your hardest.
Yeah.
Along with just a repetition of some of the other earlier themes, and possibly some allusions to some allusions to the love letter.
A little bit,
and
I think so.
A few bits.
I don't think anybody would argue that the love letter and the 36 lessons were big influences on the Truth in Sequence. Yeah. I don't know if so Kirkbride's original idea for Sothasil's big metaphysical document was going to be a book that was a palindrome that could read forward and backwards the same way.
Okay.
Which sounds like exactly the kind of grand idea he would come up with and then not do. Which, I mean, one of the things that he said to us when we were working on Tattered Emelian was you can't think big enough.
No.
Like go big, go big, go big, go bigger, you know, like just when you think you've gotten something that's like totally out of scope, go even harder. And then determine from that what you can do and then scale down, you know. But he said like he was telling us like he has never encouraged people to bring it back, you know. And so when he would talk about things like a was it like an 88 page or something? Was it supposed to be like 88 pages or something? It was supposed to be this big long fuck off palindrome.
Yeah.
When I read that, I was just like, dude, that would be an absolutely earth shattering accomplishment. For anything, much less a video game, you know.
Yeah.
So
that would just be a masterpiece of literature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
the structure of the words.
The only other thing that he mentioned was Alexia's pillow book, and you can read a pillow book. There's a very famous one written by a Japanese author, and it is basically a diary. So I have to say, of all the things that Alexia would end up writing that would make it to the third era or the fourth era, I think probably just like her diary of her bitching is exactly what would have made it. You know, it would have been something very mundane and normal and intensely private. And that, so I completely 100% get that. I don't think it would have been like a big religious text or anything. It would have been her complaining about like, you can't get good ash root anymore.
Although I'm sure there is a pillow book in the Elder Scrolls 3 somewhere that is basically said to be entirely censored. Because when the Western audience hears pillow book, you think it's going to be pornographic.
Right. And that's and like the actual like pillow book that you could read from the Japanese author whose name I cannot remember right now does have some graphic detail in it, but it's 99% of it is like what the other girls at the office were talking about, you know, what the other geisha were, you know, complaining about, or things that were said to so and so and all that kind of shit. And so like I think about what the content of Sothasil's big metaphysical diary would have been, and this ain't it. Like the truth and sequence, Sothasil's, and it's because I'm coming from this perspective of a developer, and I should be thinking of it from the perspective of an engineer, which I don't have, because I think Sothasil's more of an engineer than a developer, and those are two very different things. Engineers have rules that they make up because they work, not because they understand why they work.
Yeah. That's fair.
And so I feel like for me, Sothasil's diary or whatever would have looked like GitHub commits, you know. It would have been like change control and engineer and inventor, exactly, Alba War. And if I had written it, that's what it would have looked like, and I don't think that would have been right. I think, okay, here's what you do. Go Google, every once in a while you can find, probably not authentic, but maybe, actual, like, guidebooks written by, I almost said Templars, stonemasons, Freemasons.
Yep.
About, like, the sacred geometry that they were working on when they were, you know, calculating things like how to make arches and how to support weight and everything, or like how to rotate large things or whatever, how to cut stone. And they would talk about these sometimes in some of these texts, they would talk about these techniques in ways that were very reverential and almost holy. And because to the because to them, they were like alchemists discovering the processes of God.
Yeah.
That's what they
science you
that's how
don't
they
completely
felt.
Understand is like magic.
Sort of, except they were
So
what they were
a reverence to it.
Yeah, what they were trying to do is they were trying to understand how God works, how God does things.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, and in so doing, they were discovering these things like, magic number squares. I don't think that's what it was, but they were discovering like when people would, like Taoists would do magic number squares. They were convinced that they were finding this pattern that God had put there, or that the Tao had put there, and that tone, I think, is what I'm trying to get at, is this idea that I have this feeling that Sothisil would have been talking about clockwork and material properties. And is this the same reason engineers frequently do not believe in evolution? I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
But it is the reason why engineers will sometimes cite techniques in their plans that are, we were just talking about cargo cult development. They cite methodology that is not, as it turns out, necessary, but is something that they have always done, and they've always done it because it always works. But they don't know why it works. They just know that it does. So they'll say something like, we're going to take this cube, and then we're going to divide it in half, and then we're going to divide those halves in half, and then we'll find like the radius of a thing, and et cetera, and do all this stuff so that you end up with a shape, But they never talk about the formula that gets you there or why that math works. They just know that if you take a length of string that's as long as this side, and then you put it on one end on here, and then you take the other thing, you scribe a thing, then you get a third thing. And that's how you do it. Why? Mm-hmm. Does it have something to do with the calculation of pi or the relationship of angles? And no, we don't know that. We just know that if you do the string and the bit, then you get the other bit, And I suspect that would be kind of like what Sothisil would be doing. He would be building stuff without, and he would be experimenting with techniques to manipulate reality and consciousness and like creating his imperfects and etc. But if he gets a result, then it's a result, and he doesn't have to worry about it. He doesn't have to worry about why he got the result. He just got a result, and so then he's going to do it again the next time. And if he still gets the result, then this is great. But he's not going to think about why he's getting these results. He's just going to keep doing them. And so, that's what cargo cult programming is. It's we've always put this function here because if we put this function here, then it works, and if we don't put the function there, then it doesn't work. But we never think about why it works.
One of the more interesting insights into Seal's mental process, I think, is the memnonic planosphere. And there is a beautiful the loading screen to it says something like, some people keep diaries. Seal, you created star shapes based on blah, 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 blah. And, the whole technical, because of course he did. And it's a quote from Alexia.
Yeah, because of course he did. Yeah.
And, but going through that and looking at the things that he excised from his mind so that he could think better. Very insightful. All of the emotional moments and the things that ground him to other people and the connections and things that he has set aside so that he can focus.
Yeah, and that's I think that that singularity of purpose is also if you kind of just imagine Sothisil is the most autistic autist in all of Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
Then I think that's kind of appropriate of a guy who is, I mean, it literally I could absolutely see Sothisil writing stuff down, and then his hand starts to cramp because he's writing so much, so he cuts off his hand and replaces it with a mechanical one, and that doesn't cramp. So then he can write more. A absolute focus, and that again a little bit of mechanicum in there.
Yeah. And I hadn't thought about this before, but I sometimes annoy people because I eat the same thing over and over again, and I don't notice and I don't care because I don't want to think about food. And I've had friends who were autistic who were very much more like, how can you keep eating that? I suddenly realized that gruel in Clockwork City, Seal doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah. It's the
It's
time.
nutritious. That's all he needs. He
Right.
doesn't want the babbling brooks and the swaying grasses and all that crap. It's just distracting.
Just distracting.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. It's like my brother, who is very autistic, and I have have similar kind of like behavior patterns. Mine are caused by ADHD. So like if I'm in the middle, if I'm in a focus point, if I'm focusing on something, the most irritating thing that can happen to me when I'm in that focus mode and I'm getting shit done and I'm feeling good and productive is for my body to send me a message of any kind.
Yes.
You're uncomfortable.
100%.
You're hungry. You have to go to the bathroom. That's so fucking irritating. And
It really, really is.
yeah, and so the idea of like, well, you remember like there was actually that company, or I don't know if you remember this or not. There was actually a company called Soylent who made
Yes.
an all plant diet alternative, and you could literally go on a Soylent diet and you would just drink this all supposedly was all organic, all plants and stuff, and it was just like a shake 3 times a day. And you could drink that thing, and it supposedly was like a perfectly balanced diet.
Well, I think Huel is trying to do the same thing, isn't it?
Fuel might be trying to do the same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was a bunch of college engineers who were
Yeah.
autistic who didn't want to stop.
didn't want to
got
stop
annoyed
development.
by
Yeah,
food.
exactly.
And
Mhm.
one of the filers in the Infinite Archive, because all of the calligraphies have come, and this filer's got this line. Over there is where I had to stop working. And I just every time I hear that, I feel it.
Yeah, I just can't do that over there. Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing, that feeling of, I'm actually like, it would have been probably appropriate content for South of Sil would have been talking about how to get to focus modes, how to get into a flow state is what it's called, and the miracles that can happen in flow states. It's something that what's Aleister Crowley talked about without knowing what it was. And I think it really would have done, I think it would have been really good content for South of Sil, I think. Yeah.
A lot of my meditation expertise and the different forms of meditation that I've studied over the years and various formats and things is because the flow state, chasing the flow state, trying to figure out how to drive my brain and get it to that place and not the other place where it just randomly bounces around and doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So so anyway, so that's Truth in Sequence. And that's what I said. Yeah. I code well. That's the thing. Yeah. Or I can enjoy it. And my dog is the worst thing for flow states, by the way. I think she can smell productivity. The moment I start to actually get things going, I must exude some kind of a scent. And she goes, I got to go outside. And it happens every day, several times a day.
Cat needs attention.
Zells, you've got some stuff that you want to cover on the cast from ESO. So let's talk about that in Discord and get something prepared for the next meeting.
Okay.
We'll do that. So thanks very much, folks. That wraps up the Truth in Sequence.
Yes.
If we as always, if there's anything we have not talked about or haven't talked about in a long time that you want to hear us talk about, then by all means, bring it up in the Discord. It's the fastest way to get in touch with us. Love chanting meditation. I can't get into. All right. Anyway. Thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.